I bought the wrong property and I ended up getting sued. I wanted to share with you guys a little nightmare story that includes three big mistakes that I made with this property. The first mistake I made was I purchased this property based on the numbers, right? On paper, I scratched out the numbers look good. So needless to say, if I'm afraid to go there during the day, and especially afraid to go there at night, I may not want to buy that property. So that was the first mistake I made. So I get the property, seemed like a no-brainer, had a tenant in place. They were paying $900 a month. Obviously, I took over the property. That didn't last too long. Of course, you got to do an eviction process and get them out. No problem. Get them out. So now the property's vacant. The second big mistake that I made was I had this bright idea. You know what? Let me price the property, the rent, a little lower than the market. I was about $100 below market. And my thought process was, if I price this property $100 below market, I'm going to have all these people that come to the property. I'm going to be able to pick the best tenant, right? I'm going to have all these people to choose from. And it's probably not a good idea. Looking back, you want your property priced what the market will bear, right? And you want to get a good tenant paying a fair rent. I'm not saying you need to be the highest, but don't go way low. That was my big mistake here, and that didn't work out the way I planned. So my third error was I hired an agent to get the property rented for me, because I wasn't about to meet all these people at the property. And this gentleman was an agent. He was an investor. He worked locally for another real estate investor, and I did not do my due diligence in qualifying this person to get my property rented. I assumed because they were an agent, I assumed because they worked for another investor, I assumed because they knew the area that they would be able to do a good job in helping me find a qualified tenant for my property. I assumed wrong. I didn't qualify this agent the way I should have. He starts advertising the property, starts marketing and advertising the property. His phone blows up. So he's getting all these people calling him saying that they want to see the property. He decides, he gets the bright idea, as a local handyman he knows, and he tells the local handyman, hey, here's the key. Can you go show the property to these people? Handyman's like, sure, I'll do that. So, okay, bad idea. This is what ends up happening. He gives the key to the handyman and sets up all these appointments for people to come look at the property. And the handyman gets the bright idea, hey, these guys want this property, and they might be willing to pay a deposit. So he goes and he took a month security deposit to hold the property from three tenants. So three tenants gave him cash for the property, and he promised it to them. And one of those three, he actually gave access and possession of the property to. Now, he told the three tenants, you go down to the office and they'll get the lease and everything together for you. This deposit will hold your spot. So they're showing up at his office looking to sign a lease on a property that they weren't approved for. And at the same time, right, it was vacant, right? So we're turning it over. I got my contractor going in and getting everything necessary to be in compliance with the city and get a certificate of occupancy with the city. The reason I found out was my contractor calls me up and says, hey, Chatto, did you rent the property out already? I'm like, no, what's going on? It's like, there's somebody living here. I'm like, what? What do you mean there's somebody living here? And that was the one person that the handyman allowed into the property. Now, all of a sudden, I have a tenant that paid a month's security deposit, which I did not receive, moved in without a certificate of occupancy, so I had to explain that one to the city, and hopefully you're going to pay their rent. Obviously, they were nice. They were nice enough. I got them to sign a lease, and we kind of moved forward because we kind of had to. They were in the property. I got them to sign a lease, and maybe they made it 3-4 months before I had to evict them and get them out and do the whole process over again. Here's how I got sued, right? So even though I hired this agent, and even though he decided to, quote unquote, hire this handyman took money from these people. They decided to sue me as the owner because their position was, hey, I put down the security deposit to hold this unit and you rented it to somebody else. I want it back. So they're looking at me to pay them back their security deposit, and I never received it. This other guy was involved. Of course, he disappears. Nobody can find him. He's not answering any messages. and nobody knows where he is. I'm like, okay, because obviously he wasn't a licensed and insured handyman that the agent was using. So he disappears. So I do get sued. The office where he's working out of gets sued, and we end up having to go to court. Luckily, I guess for me, the person suing did not show up, and we won, and it got dismissed because they never showed up, and nothing's came of it since then. It's been a long, long time since this happened. But wow, there were a lot of lessons in there for me to learn. Once it was said and done, I was about $10,000 over the course of a year negative. Deal that penciled out to be really good. I'm out 10 grand over the course of a year. I became what they called a desperate seller, right? I was a motivated seller. Maybe that's a better word. I was a motivated seller. And I sold it to another investor on terms because I just wanted to be done with it. I couldn't handle it. I didn't want to handle it. I shouldn't have bought a property that I didn't want. I was able to recoup my initial purchase price. I was able to recoup my losses. It was a wash when I was complete. That being said, hopefully those lessons help you in a way, and just make sure you do everything the right way. Put in the effort to make sure that what people are telling you is true. Don't just assume. Anyways, that being said, check out my previous videos that I posted on screening tenants, because again, the tenants, having a good tenant in your property is going to be the difference between making money and losing money. I went through 2 bad tenants in this property, and it cost me $10,000 in the course of a year. Obviously, this is a newer channel. Like and subscribe. If you made it this far, maybe somewhat enjoy my content, hopefully the content's of value. Like and subscribe, I'd appreciate it. Apparently, it has something to do with the algorithm. And lastly, right, aside from that, most importantly, comment, right? Let me know. I'd love to hear what your nightmare story might be, and maybe what you learned from it would be awesome.